Well, good morning, good afternoon, students. This is a short presentation that is intended to clarify some concepts related to humanism in education and humanism in ELT. Well, as you can see, right, we have been discussing several pioneers of humanism, and we didn't speak about Carl Rogers. Well, Carl Rogers supports the idea that every human being has a natural potential for learning. Learning goes hand in hand with cognition and feelings. That is to say, it's not just a matter of accumulating knowledge at schools, but it's meant to develop, let's say, the person as a whole, right, together with the creation of the necessary environment to make learning significant. That's why we say that personal relevance is an asset. Now, how do you involve students? By, let's say, continuously addressing students to do things. Experiential learning is important and takes a vital role in the classroom. Active participation, criticism to the minimum. That is to say, our appraisal on students' performance should be on the positive side. We have to minimize being harsh to students and let's say in a way highlight their achievements rather than their weaknesses. So the teacher should be always ready to provoke in the students some kind of reflection on the techniques and strategies that they use in order to cope with classroom work. That is to say, they have to be aware of their learning. So this eventually will make them develop independence, and it will boost creativity, which of course will rely on self evaluation, right? And what else? And this will help with self esteem, and the students will grasp the concept that they can rely on themselves for learning. Perhaps he used to view students as, let's say, clients rather than another role for them. I highlighted this quote. I found this very helpful, and perhaps it should be a quote we should have in mind in order to think about activities, right? And the purpose, the aim, beyond the knowledge or the language point in itself. The only man who is educated is a man who has learned how to adapt and change, the man who has realized no knowledge is secure, that only the process of seeking knowledge gives basis for security. Well, what are the implications of the humanistic approach? Well, teaching entails developing a sense of identity, differentiation. No learner is equal to the other, so that let's say in a way prompts us to personalize learning. We have to give room to choice. That is to say, students should feel that they are somehow in command. Empathy is important in the classroom. So but not just the teacher placing herself or himself in the student's shoes, but students, right, also doing the other way around and in relation with their partners. Well, what about the implications of the humanistic approach? Well, this freedom of responsibility in students, the fact that they have to develop a sense of identity, the fact that the teacher is the one that, let's say, can tell one from the other, gives a space for them to express themselves and is able to understand them in terms of, let's say, their suggestions, to understand their proposals, to sometimes make exceptions if it is necessary to sort of establish an atmosphere where flexibility prevails. Well, what about the ELT? Well, humanism in ELT had a clear impact. We could see that some methods, right, were developed, the silent way, Sagistopedia, and community language learning. But perhaps what we should pay attention to, and it is worth mentioning, is the fact that humanism places its focus on what? On feelings, the environment, and on personal involvement. So the students are likely to be active participants, and learning will happen when experiences are relevant. That is to say, experiences in the classroom should be important and should be anchored somehow to the students' let's say interests and of course let's say realities. Perhaps a good idea is to consider the following points when we think of the language teacher who is in favor of creating, let's say, a kind of classroom where humanism prevails. Well, boost the sense of belonging, make the subject relevant to the learner, so that is to say, context based, involve the whole person as active participants to, in a way, give the students the chance to get to know themselves and help them build their personal identity, to encourage self esteem, right? And this is closely related to what we have been discussing as regards Maslow, right? Pyramid, remember, of and the hierarchy of needs. Then involving feelings and emotions to create self-assurance, let's say atmosphere, minimize criticism, encourage creativity, develop a knowledge of the process of learning. That's to say, it is important that the students really get to know how they learn, encouraging self-initiation and self-evaluation, and these concepts were let's say mentioned by Erik Erikson as well. And of course, always give room for choice. Well, students, this is what we had to, let's say, discuss in class, and we couldn't do it because we were short of time. I hope this is useful for you, right? And the rest of the chapter will be in a different clip. We are going to talk about Vygotsky's ideas, social interactionism, and Fürste.